Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. With Minnesota's Major 2 just around the corner, there's been plenty of talk about which two teams are more likely to make the grand finals. OpTic and FaZe certainly chief among discussions, but Shotzzy's explaining exactly why they do not scrim at FaZe and haven't done for several weeks at this point. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy the video. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. The process coming very soon indeed. Come back to. That's going to be a good time. I guess it's coming out tomorrow or something along those lines right before the major begins. So going to be crazy to see the behind the scenes of all this type of stuff. Few things to mention before we dive into the topics. TacticalRab say the following: ranked play updates finally live. They reckon that now wins are going to be more rewarding, losses less punishing, and then well that's what they're going for. Reduction to the impact the match performance has on the amount of SR won or lost. So kind of the issues were that if you were playing a lot of objective or if your teammate was just playing for a lot of kills, then over time, even if you queue together, you can eventually get too far apart in terms of SR that you won't be able to play with them anymore. Didn't really make all that much sense. More consistent SR gains and losses overall. So that's what TacticalRab reckon for Sledgehammer's game, which of course big Vanguards, but the kind of rank play system that they have helped introduce. So pretty cool stuff from TacticalRab once again. This also to mention from GG Breaker Points. Spoon did a great job, I imagine, rolling this one out. Where on the website you can now click through and actually see kind of player profiles here. So country, team, date of birth, like, you know, KD ratio, all this type of stuff now available over at breakingboy.gg. Absolutely beautiful scenes. Let's talk about the whole JCap 100 Thieves situation, Los Angeles Thieves situation, because yeah, plenty of talk the last couple of days. What do they do with this roster? Do they make a move pre-major? Doesn't seem likely to happen at the moment, but who knows what they're going to do over the next couple of days. But also the fact that I'm pretty sure in previous seasons, like I think JCap had alongside him Novus, who's now the general manager of the Seattle Surge, but Novus was the analyst for Los Angeles Thieves in previous years. JCap had a bit of help on that front. We've kind of seen, right, with OpTic and with a lot of the other teams, they have a lot of coaching staff, right? And of course Rambo comes alongside Sender, and I felt like a lot of people said that, okay, Sender has some great attributes as a coach, as in like, you know, he's really strategic, understands the game very well, comes up with some great ideas, but isn't quite able to control the team dynamic and get his kind of thoughts across to the team as well as, you know, Rambo might be able to do that. JCap seems to be a player that also understands the game very well, has some great ideas, but isn't quite the kind of man management guy or potentially the analytical stats guy that they actually need on the roster. Like, they might listen to JCap a lot and he has some great ideas, but whether we can actually get that across and keep the team level-headed in situations where they're either struggling or they're doing really well and they're getting ahead of themselves, these type of situations, JCap might not be ideal for that particular role. So there has been some thoughts as, okay, yes, the team might not be working, the team probably needs to change, but does the coaching staff also need to change? In addition, what exactly do you do with it? Some people have been thinking, okay, you know, Christopher Parasite Duarte, do you bring this guy in? Los Angeles Thieves, of course, have dropped way down the pecking order. I'm not sure I completely agree with these rankings, to be perfectly honest. We'll look at some more here in a few minutes' time. But yeah, LA Thieves here at number 11, right, which isn't probably too far off where they belong right now, to be honest, with the 0-5 stage, albeit they did play some pretty good teams as their opponents, all things considered, but I mean, still, yeah, not the ideal. You know, you don't want to go 0-5. It's Paris Legion numbers, and Paris Legion even didn't do that this stage, right, which was pretty impressive. But there has been some suggestions as to whether Parasite should be the guy to step into Los Angeles Thieves and do a bit of coaching for them. And well, it was a video that came out called Highlights, putting out kind of summing up what the Reddit had to say, compared to what Nature had to say, basically saying that, look, Parasite, from what I team with him, like, this guy's just way too toxic to be a good coach.
Number one most upvoted comment is they should hire Parasite. He was one of the smartest players of all time. Listen, I've known Parasite Haggy for a long time. He was a great player in his own right. But the reason why Parasite 99% of the time didn't work on teams was because he was so toxic. He didn't know how to share feedback. He didn't know how to talk to people. He didn't know how to push the team in a forward direction and get everybody on the same page. He was very, very good, but in terms of team cohesion and morale, it was probably the worst player you could have had on your team. So that everybody's like, oh, but he'd be a great coach. I'm like, do you guys understand what it takes to get 4 players to be on the same page? For 4 players to buy into a program? I just can't stand this backseat decision making for the community when they just really don't understand.
So it is kind of tough to see in a way that Haggy's reputation for like the several years of his career is still kind of, you know, following him down the line right here. But then again, I think the Nate maybe has a point that, you know, Parasite as the sole coach might not be the greatest person to get everything across in the right way all the time, but him paired up with someone who is good at doing that probably could be a fantastic pairing. But I'm not sure that Jacob and Parasite makes too much sense in that way. But, you know, something to consider, right? Because I think Los Angeles Thieves might have to think, okay, wow, we look at Toronto. Of course, they've kind of fallen off off lately, but you look at, FaZe, OpTic, right? A lot of these teams, Minnesota, for example, they've got a lot of coaching staff behind them, and maybe LA Thieves need to consider something similar, because they had an analyst last season. They haven't really reflected that so far this year, which maybe is putting them in a tough spot to some degree, or at least stretching JCap too thin that he can't complete the rest of his responsibilities with maximum precision. But let's talk about this as well. So the reverse sweep, they come up with their power rankings the last 24 hours or so, and of course, lots to talk about. OpTic, FaZe, are they number 1, number 2? Of course they are. Interesting, actually, to me, they didn't put FaZe in the S tier right here. Pretty sure Eggs wanted to, of course, but the rest of the guys thought, okay, actually, OpTic are clear of FaZe right now, which might well be true. To me, I still think that OpTic and FaZe, it's not necessarily a coin toss for the event. I think OpTic are favoured, but I think out of those two teams have much more chance, I think, of winning the event than anyone else does. But still, I thought it was interesting what they came up with. There were some other rather controversial takes in here. The fact that, Los Angeles Thieves at the top of the C tier, Toronto Ultra still here in the B tier, but everything else apart from that doesn't look too bad, all things considered. But there was some talk from Shotzzy, actually, thanks to Gatak and a couple of others, pointing these clips out to me, that the OpTic guys do not scrim FaZe right now. He explains the reason why it's to do with the ping, but you do have to wonder whether, if they know that they're the best two teams in the game, would they want to give each other secrets away?
We don't scrim FaZe. We don't scrim them, they don't scrim us. Dying, nothing left again. Why? Because of the ping. Every single time we play them, it's just a ping difference, dude. It's AIDS. It's literally fake practice. It's either work.
So Shotzzy explains the reasons as being, okay, the ping differential for some reason when they play a FaZe, right, I guess they were in Atlanta, it is particularly bad on whatever servers they play on, which is quite an interesting explanation, to be perfectly honest. I do wonder whether both of these teams think to some degree, look, if the ping situation is bad, they might be able to find a way around it or do something different, who knows. But at the same time, if you are OpTic and FaZe, you're number 1, number 2, you might not want to scrim each other, right, because usually going into events, let's say, FaZe know they're playing New York, right, they're not going to scrim New York over the next couple of days because they don't want to give anything away, they don't want to give any tendencies, they don't want to allow that team to kind of see their breakoffs, what they might have been working on the last few days in scrims ahead of an actual matchup against them. And of course, usually going into events, you don't know who you're going to play necessarily, so you just scrim whoever you can get the opportunity to do so. But these two teams might feel like they're so far ahead of the game, especially OpTic, I think, are kind of clear favourites to at least make the grand finals, let's just say, and they feel like more than likely if they do make the grand finals, they'll play FaZe there. That's why they've been trying to expand their map pool, all this type of stuff. So they might not be scrimming FaZe for that reason in a way. Of course, maybe the ping differential has something to do with it, as Shotzzy's explaining, but I do wonder whether kind of going into the event, they're pretty confident they will play FaZe at some point or another, and therefore you don't necessarily want to scrim them leading into things. So quite interesting, right, that the two best teams haven't really been playing against each other in practice at all, which just creates the matchup dynamic even more, makes the matchup dynamics even more exciting, to be honest, because usually we got to see maybe something behind the scenes in terms of scrims and stuff, how results were going with these particular rosters, but now that is certainly not the case anymore, and Shotzzy's saying it's basically due to the ping differential between the teams, but it does make you wonder, okay, Texas to Atlanta, should it really be any worse than Texas to Los Angeles, for example, or, playing Toronto in scrims if they do that? I'm pretty sure they didn't do that for a while, but I don't really know why it should necessarily be worse. Then again, last year, there was some talk when they played FaZe in that online league match, right, the kind of server that the CDL gave them, I think they gave them an Atlanta server or whatever, so it wasn't ideal, but I imagine when they're scrimming, they're not playing on that one, so bit of an interesting situation. You guys can definitely leave your thoughts in the comment section below. There was some further drama, actually, about this tier list, mainly around Florida being here in the D tier, because Florida started off this stage very well. They're 3-0, 3-1 their first couple of series, then they got bodied after that by admittedly some very good teams. They lost to OpTic, they lost to FaZe, and the guys put them all the way down here in the D tier, just ahead of Paris. New York Summoners bump up quite a bit, which I think is probably fair enough, to be honest. Ultra having them in the B tier, I think, was maybe slightly optimistic given the way they finished out their stage, and Thieves here above Seattle and Minnesota doesn't maybe seem right, given I think they lost to both of those teams. But I thought this is pretty spicy, actually, from Ogre too, the general manager of the Florida Mutineers. He comes on and says, okay, today the things I learned about my team from the reverse sweep episode: Awakening is still running an AR, lost to 1, 2, and 4 teams, beat LAG 3-0, got the 7th seed, we were in D tier with Paris, thought it was just Enable who hasn't been watching, I can't tell if this is clickbait. Enable says, okay, D tier probably too harsh, should be C tier, but he's explaining his reasoning, right, the team has 3 men ARs, doesn't make any sense, went 2 and 3 in both qualifiers, have the smallest map pool in the league, and Ogre 2's like, what are you talking about? So quite interesting, to be honest, kind of backing up the takes that they made there. I don't think Florida are as good as maybe Elgato thinks that they might be, but still they have upset potential. But yeah, there were a lot of talk already the way they're building the roster. Why have they got so many assault rifle players on the team? Which is certainly an understandable critique. I mean, people had this complaints before we even went into the season, to be perfectly honest. But Awakening, in fairness, has been doing very well on the SMG in general. And of course, on a map like Kavuta, they can kind of all pull it out and have a decent go at things. But yeah, maybe not the ideal roster composition, some people would argue. But I do think it was quite interesting that Elgato was kind of getting into the battle here. Because from my perspective, if you're the general manager and you're kind of like, super happy with the way you've built the roster, very confident this team's going to succeed going forwards, like, why do you need to argue that you're okay B tier or C tier instead of D tier on the timeline? Like, why not just let your team do the talking in the server? If you're confident in your boys and the way you've done your team, why does it matter if the kind of analysts say that you're D tier instead of B tier or C tier? Like, just prove them wrong and they have to change their mind next episode, right? Like, I don't know. I don't really understand why you need to go into this depth of kind of arguing this on the timeline, because as like says Awakening, maybe currently running an SMG, traditionally an AR, arguably better in that role. This is a combination of stage 1 plus what we saw with stage 2 in just to our opinion. Elgato says it's not true that Awakening's better with running an AR, and Parasite explained it was how, teams look now versus stage 1 in the video, and Abel then comes out and explains how teams have moved with it, pre-major 1 to now, with Florida kind of going down 1, Los Angeles Thieves only going down 4, which, to number 8, thought was maybe kind of, underestimating how far they've fallen. I feel like the only reason why they put them number 8 is just because of the names on the team, right? You hear Envoy, Kenny, Drazah and Octane, and there's no way that team should be worse than 8, but I'm pretty sure if LA Thieves had had their results and didn't have the kind of name power that they have, then these guys would have put them further down, because you do still feel like you see Los Angeles Thieves, you feel like they've got a win in them, but just the way the team's been playing as of late, it seems rather unlikely. X is then explaining exactly how Los Angeles Thieves have been ranked, and then Elgato says, do New York for that one, and then Elgato's like, you're not getting on the roster bad, but Florida make a change that'll give them the same treatment in terms of how they have a brand new look and stuff what New York have managed to accomplish. But yeah, I do think it was kind of strange, really. The guys on the reverse sweep can have their opinion, Elgato might well disagree, but of course they've got to come into the major and prove these guys wrong, because they play London first round. If they lose that one, they drop down to a pretty stacked lower bracket, playing probably the Paris Legions. They've got to get a good top 8, top 6 performance here to even have a chance of getting out of that D tier, to be perfectly honest. This also from Doug Tinter Martin thought was pretty funny. Thanks to a couple of guys for pointing this out to me. It's honestly insane to me how much trash I got from drawing 7 kills in an 8's game, which I never played while I watched multiple pros drop less kills in official matches. To think how bad 7 changed my reputation as a player is absolutely absurd. So, whether this is true or not, I don't really know, just because, of course, Formal's reaction to that clip on what is it, Ramal's hard points, definitely kind of makes the clip and has made it kind of pretty famous. But, I mean, look, I don't know. Doug Tinter Martin, you could argue there's other reasons why he's not considered a top player anymore, outside of just the 7 kills shenanigans. There was some other good moments in Ace that game that Doug was playing it as well. But here we go, then this is the upcoming weekend Major 2 tournaments. They do release the official schedule right here. It's the same as last time, unfortunately, for us in the UK. They really put with a straight face here that it's going to start at 2 AM GMT, and I'm pretty sure that's actually wrong, because we're on BST, not GMT anymore, lads. So, gotta sort that one out. But, I mean, yeah, these are the games. Obviously, we've got the winners bracket games on the Thursday, going into Friday with the losers round 2 matchup here. Then it goes on the Saturday. Same format as before. A crazy weekend, I'm sure it's going to be. But very much intrigued to your thoughts and all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button. Tell us the YouTube gods, this is a good video. Others like you should see it as well. And help grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you much as always. Take care. And I'll see you next time.